Hey, everybody. Welcome to the Locked On Vikings POSTCAST. I'm Luke Braun. This is Sam Ekstrom. We're here to recap the Arizona Cardinals versus Minnesota Vikings preseason game. The losing streak continues to grow. 0-10. It's like the Twins in the playoffs. They can't win a preseason game.
Keep it rolling. Keep it rolling.
It's I
like the epic nature of it. It's all
Look, they never
it gives
play
a little
starters.
humor, a little intrigue. I know people get on me for being the negative guy, but come on, have a little sense of humor about it. It's all right.
Like, look, they're particularly secretive. They don't play any starters. It makes sense that they're like a worse version of themselves in the preseason than other teams are that, will play starters sometimes and stuff.
It's interesting how just kind of that mentality in your head coach, though, does actually impact the preseason results a lot. Like, you would expect preseason games to be so much of a coin flip because of how much parity there is in the second half. Yeah. But hey, you get a Mike Zimmer out there, you win these games, I guess. You get a Kevin O'Connell in here, you don't, and that's not a knock on O'Connell whatsoever. He's handling it probably the same way I would if I was a head coach.
Yeah, it makes total sense, and who cares, right? These don't count. But in terms of the actual game and what we saw and what was played, what is your major takeaway? Tell me the headline, Sam.
Yeah, I thought there were roughly a dozen players, maybe 15 or so, who entered this game on the bubble, either like, last five in or first five out, kind of right on the precipice of being rostered. And I thought most of those players played well, particularly on the defensive side of the ball. Like, if you thought Jay Ward as a fourth-round rookie was in some trouble, he had a really nice splash play in this game. He led the team in tackles. He did well. TJ Smith played well. Luigi Villain played well. Sheldon Day played well. I think Sheldon Day has worked himself into that same tier as TJ Smith, Jaquelin Roy, guys like that. He might be a sneaky rostery here in the last few weeks.
He's put himself into my 53. I'll tell you that much. I'm doing that on Locked On Vikings on Tuesday.
Yeah, and maybe we'll all be let down a la T.Y. McGill. But and then on the offensive side of the ball, they didn't put Tristan Jackson in a ton of positions to make plays, but he made a catch and then had another really nice catch where he was just out of bounds. Jalen Reagor, a couple nice catches.
You got to get your toe down, man. You got to know where the sideline is.
Got to drag it. But generally, I thought those that needed to perform well did perform well. And, that to some extent includes Jaren Hall. I wish I could erase the fourth quarter a little bit. That interception was pretty bad. But he showed some good things in this game, too. And I think he's making the team. There's been some speculation that he wouldn't. I think Jaren Hall was always going to make the team. And I don't know if this performance even mattered that much to that quest. I just think that they want to give him the year. So I think he's on the team, but showed some good things in this game as well.
For me, the headline of the game is what a day for the whole rookie class, all of day 3. You had Jay Ward had a great day. I thought Jaquelin Roy was absolutely humming today. I think Jaren Hall did more good than bad. That interception at the end was a catastrophe. And then, of course, you got to know you're over the line of scrimmage at the end.
Jaren Hall Ben Sims would have had a huge play.
What a beautiful throw that was, too. What a fantastic play to get out of the pocket, buy a bunch of time, find him, throw a perfect strike. You got to know where the line is. The thing is right next to you, man.
He stepped up in the pocket. He stepped up, too. He was fine.
Yeah.
And then he did a shuffle.
I think he needed to do to deliver the throw right.
Power, yeah.
But man, that thing is right. It's big and orange, and it's right next to you, man. You're killing me. But otherwise, I think more good than bad in his game. And I thought DeWayne McBride had a really nice game. He's another one of those bubble guys. I think he needed a big game, and I think he gave it to us. So he made all the decisions hard, I think.
Yeah, it probably did muddy the waters a little bit because now the guys that might have been out in your mind kind of worked themselves back into the conversation. And McBride, 8 for 37, that probably his best of the 3 preseason performances for sure. Do you think Dykes or Smith have any shot whatsoever? Do you think they've put themselves on the bubble?
I think Abram Smith has misread too many plays. I think it was kind of already over for it. Now, what's interesting is the way that they approached this was McBride, Smith, and Dykes, all 3 of them shifted over drives. So you had McBride taking snaps in the fourth quarter. They did not have a clear depth chart between those 3.
Right.
And I think between those three, those were like McBride was far and away the best. I think Dykes is if we are going to have a surprise here, it's going to be Dykes, not Abram Smith. But I think DeWayne McBride did a great job of reading plays, hitting holes with authority, and broke some tackles, made some things happen. Caught a touchdown. That's supposed to be a thing for him, right? He can't catch. Well, he caught a touchdown.
No, that was Smith.
Was Abram Smith. Oh,
yeah.
Okay. He caught one, didn't he?
He had a rushing touchdown.
He had a rushing touchdown. Okay,
rushing touchdown to start the game. Then Abram Smith.
That is totally what I'm thinking of.
Had the
yeah.
Right,
but regardless, I still think McBride had the best game of the three. If you were worried about that, and what I think now, it is just down to a numbers game of if you are going to have a fourth running back, it will be McBride. I don't think that is in question. I don't think it was like all that even to begin with. I think McBride just needed to not have a catastrophe and fumble 3 times, but it's going to be about, are you going to keep a fourth one? Is Ken Nwangwu going to be on the 53 to begin with, or are we doing pup things with him? That might make the decision a little easier, but that's going to be kind of where it comes down to. It's just the numbers game.
Yeah. Last year, if it's any indication, they had incredible commitment to their draft class guys. They probably could have cut Odamewo, Lowe, Naylor, even Muse. Like, we didn't have a lot of steam that any of those guys were going to be big contributors, but they held on to every single one. They still have every single one. Yeah, like they've been really committed to that class. So I would sort of expect the same to be true when you've seen enough from certainly Jaquelin Roy, certainly Jay Ward, I think. And Ward's in a crowded room. Like, I do wonder about like Theo Jackson's place, and maybe Jackson is the guy they sneak on the practice squad instead of Ward. But
Jackson getting in as the third safety with that Gervais guy that just came in feels like it bodes poorly for his roster odds. But it might. I mean, he was a practice squad guy last year, so you might just be doing that again.
Yeah, and Gervais looks like a linebacker, but he's playing safety. It's
49 is not working for him.
No, there was a lot of number confusion for me in this game, but I also confused Junior Aho for Jonathan Bullard. I guess 73 and 93 just haven't clicked yet in here.
Your 3 assist.
Moving on. Yeah.
Yeah, let's move right past that. So I guess like the roster competitions going in that were super interesting. I think maybe the most interesting thing here is who played, who didn't, right? Because there were some players who are, as far as we know, healthy. And correct me if I'm wrong on any of these. You know this better than I do. But I believe like Najee Thompson was cleared. He was practicing full contact, right? He can't do that if he's still in the protocol.
No, he wasn't though. I don't think he was in joints at all. Nope, he was off to the side. He was watching.
He was off to the side, so he might still be unhealthy.
He's still in the protocol. Yep. So
Brandon Powell did not.
Brandon Powell was healthy. So
healthy scratch. That's interesting. So that feels like he's in. And Jalen Reagor did play. He didn't play a lot. He played like the first couple of drives, same amount as like Andrew Booth played. Joejuan Williams did not. And you had some guys that feel like they're going to be on the roster that were playing the first like couple of drives. And then you get into, all right, now this is, CJ Colden and Jalen Williams for the rest of the game.
Yeah.
I think 1 quarter.
Yep. And again, I really only felt like there were, after the key backups left in the first quarter, I only thought there were about 12 guys playing for the rest of the game that would be on this team. Some players
some rookies,
they're playing for practice squad spots. I think it'd be a pretty compelling exercise to try to compile a 16-man practice squad of all the internal candidates. I mean, you've got Lucky Jackson, Blake Prohl, Jacob Copeland, Ben Sims, like all of those linemen playing at the end too. Didn't make a great case for themselves either, but a couple linemen are probably going to sneak through, and it's been a little painful to watch them in second halves. The second half scoring margin was not pretty for the Vikings at all this preseason.
But that's a problem that tends to resolve itself because those culpable can be sacked.
Yeah, very true. I was hoping for a little more from Thayer Thomas today. He's been my favorite practice squad guy all preseason, all training camp.
The punt return, that's rough.
Yeah, KJ Osborne struggled in that role as a rookie too, and he's been all right. I don't think Thayer is a special teams guy right now. I just think that he's a really, really good like rookie receiving prospect that I want to keep around.
That might be a practice squad thing. We'll see if he can kind of. I mean, it's hard because I think the thing holding him back the most is just raw speed. He ran like a 4.57 or something like that, and I think he plays honestly slower. But when in terms of 53-man roster, look, you're not gonna if you're not on special teams, you can't be wide receiver 6, and that's the thing about Rager. What I believe the first team punt gunners will be is Najee Thompson and Jalen Rager, and if they decide they aren't going to keep Thompson just for special teams, which I don't know if they can justify, but if they are going to do that, then it gets to be somebody
else. And you've got Rager on the team then, it sounds like.
I've got 6 wideouts right now, yeah. And I decided to do that instead of keeping Nick Muse. I want to rethink that after I watch the rest of this game. It seemed like he had some good moments. He only played a quarter similarly, so we'll see if I still feel that way. But I kind of decided, you know what? I think Rager and Powell have both been more consistent than Muse. And ultimately, it's about like whatever, 4 tight ends, 6 wide receivers, whatever. I think I want to keep those 2 guys over Muse. And those 2 guys have, I think, made more substantial contributions to special teams in terms of being the returner, being the gunner.
It's been pretty negative on Rager, I think, ever since last year, right? Like last year was
the Colts game. Yeah.
The Colts game soured people. Then it soured people again when they watched the documentary. Calling it like I see it, I think he's had a representative training camp. If you didn't have the sour taste, if you had just acquired him and he was showing what he's shown, I think people would be decently kind of pumped about that. And he's shown up in each preseason game. He's made a couple plays, and he made a couple plays today. So maybe they were trying to showcase him. Maybe they worked all week to install a couple Jalen Rager plays just to put it on tape. But he has not been bad at all. I think Powell's been better and utilized in more versatile ways. But I think if you wanted to make Rager your 6th, that's a fine argument.
And I think, 5 or 6 between those 2, but I think I'm keeping both. That's the key here. I have a spicy question for you, Sam. But before I ask it, it is fantasy football season. And that means it's time to go to Underdog Fantasy and try a best ball. It's a great way to warm up if you haven't had your draft yet, or if you just kind of have that fantasy draft fever and you want to do one. A best ball is a great way to do it. It is a live snake draft, just like any other. However, it is your team with no trades, no waivers, and your lineups are set for you all year. So you're not joining another league and doing the time commitment of that. It's just fire and forget. So it's a great way to get a draft in. And hey, you can join the Underdog Fantasy Best Ball Mania tournament, which is a $15 million prize pool. $3 million goes to the winner. And last year, the winner drafted their team all the way back in July. So get on it. You can go to underdogfantasy.com or find them in the App Store and sign up with promo code Locked On to get your first deposit doubled up to $100. That's Underdog Fantasy, promo code Locked On. Sam, I have a spicy question. Whether or not today's events influenced this, who do you think the Viking is that is most likely to get traded away to another team on cut down day or around it?
Okay. Well,
not cut, traded.
Well, I did just allude to Jalen Rager.
It's an interesting idea.
Yeah, I mean, what'd they give up for Rager? 5th?
I think a 5th in total value because all the picks were delayed, but it turned into a 5th. It was a 7th last year, and it became a 5th in the 2024 draft.
Okay,
but because that was like 2 years after you did it, the charts kind of treat that as less.
I was just wondering if they could get positive value from that acquisition, but I don't think they can.
No, they can recoup a lot of it though. I mean, it's all day 3 stuff, so it's pennies for nickels.
There was speculation with the Trey Lance stuff, which is now dead, that they would trade away a pass rusher, a Patrick Jones or a DJ Wanham.
I saw that Albright thing. Yeah,
it didn't come to fruition. I don't think they have a lot of value either. I think, they would have like future conditional 7th round value. Do you have someone in mind? Because I would like to, if you've thought this through. Okay.
I got 2. One is less spicy than the other. I think there is a possibility we see it with Oli Udoh. I think Oli Udoh has had a fairly poor preseason in total, but he's on a veteran benefit contract, which is a weird contract thing where he's actually making $2.5 million, but he counts for the veteran minimum against the salary cap. And I believe the way that works is if you cut him, then you have to pay the entire $2.5 million on the salary cap, as like dead cap. But if you trade him, I think that money goes away. So I think it might be a Jesse Davis-ish situation where his contract makes him kind of uncuttable, but you might be able to flip him for a conditional 2025 seventh or something like that. And then the other guy is, because of that pass rusher thing, just got in my head, and I kind of thought, you know what? DJ Wanham's an interesting piece because I think you can get something real for him. Like and by
Really?
real, I mean, not a conditional seventh. I think you could get it like a fourth or a fifth, some Trey Lance, a Trey Lance sized package for him. The second Trey Lance sized package. But because the Vikings have Luigi Villan, who I thought had a really nice day, they have Patrick Jones, who I think has been really solid all of camp. And then, of course, Hunter and Davenport as the actual starters. There is a bit of a redundancy. And if there's a lot of roster pressure, that could be one way to relieve it and then recoup some of the day 3 capital that they're missing in 2024. I don't know. What do you think of either of those guys?
I would not mind parting with either. Oli Udoh has been underwhelming. And I don't frankly think you would miss him that much. I think redundancy is the word. I think Blake Brandel, even though he's been training at guard, he can play a tackle position. Vidarian Lowe has outshined Oli Udoh. So you've got your 2 swing tackles right there. As far as DJ Wanham is concerned, I guess I don't see quite the same value you do. I think maybe there's something there. I guess a 4th or a 5th would surprise me a little bit if teams are like kind of digging into his resume and kind of, the first 2 years weren't very good at all. Maybe they're pumped about his step forward last year in the 3-4 and they think
kind of what I'm
thinking.
fit.
But yeah,
it's a 1-year rental. He would have shown out more if it weren't for Hunter and Zadarius Smith both being healthy,
Yeah, and if there's a team that feels like they lack depth, maybe they see Wanham as a just plug and play 3rd or 4th pass rusher. Not impossible. I do think 4th or 5th is high in my opinion, but
sure. 6th or 7th then.
I guess I wouldn't mourn parting with him, and if I wouldn't mourn parting with him, other teams might not see a lot of value there, but I'm not an NFL decision maker or coach.
It's interesting. He's been treated like the same way Josh Metellus has been treated. I don't think he's played any preseason snaps at all. And he's been kind of the very clear 3rd guy in a world where I thought there would actually be more of a competition between him and Patrick Jones for that. So they clearly have a plan. I don't know. It just feels like there is weird roster pressure. So I'm looking for, okay, where are there too many guys? And maybe instead of cutting one, you try to get a draft pick for one.
Well, Villain's made it an easier choice, 100%.
Yeah, he's given you, sort of that like luxury.
Mm-hmm.
It will be interesting. I do think Kwesi will do some trading at the end here. Is there anybody else that we haven't highlighted yet that you would like to call out as having an interest? You know who we haven't talked about yet? Andrew Booth, right?
Yeah, and he got the first quarter treatment, right?
Yeah.
He made an appearance, and then
Muse and Vidarian Lowe, who went out of the game before Udoh did, by the way.
I think that Booth is part of an injury-prone group that is very young, and you can't, like, for the injury-prone reason, I don't think you can afford to just, like, get rid of a corner that has the upside that he does. And for the youth reason, I think you have to give some of these guys time to grow a little bit more. I think that you've assembled a group that doesn't have a lot of surefire things. Byron Murphy, that's the most surefire corner you have. The rest of them are all just young. They've been kind of banged up. They're trying to like make their name for themselves. And Booth is, even though he doesn't have momentum right now, he's part of that. Like he's part of this youth movement. Give him the year with Flores, and see what happens with it. He's another guy that's been speculated to be cut by some. I don't see it. I think you got to see it through for at least another year. He is healthy right now. And you're going to need cornerback depth. And I don't see a lot of quality depth. So at least keep the 2nd round pick around to be that guy. So if he has to play, at least he's learning something.
I think if you're cutting Booth, you're doing it so you can keep a guy like Theo Jackson. And I don't really see that. But you have, I don't think Booth will dress on game days if he makes the team. That's kind of where he is cornerback 5 very solidly. And if he's not going to play on special teams and Najee Thompson is, then Thompson gets to be CB5 on actual game days. Until someone gets hurt, I don't know if that's the case, which kind of tells me, okay, well, why is he here when we got all this roster pressure and everywhere else? But I think I'm with you in that I'm not ready to give up on him yet. I still see enough of the athleticism, in particular, the flexibility that tells me, if he can learn to do a little less and react a little less to, small moves on the release, if he can just be a little bit more patient and trust his recovery ability a little bit more, then I think he can start to take the steps forward that he needs to take. But make no mistake about it, we found out today he's behind Joejuan Williams on that depth chart. And of course, he's behind the other three guys too. And where that puts him is going to be really interesting. And I don't want to say that Najee Thompson is a full guarantee right now either, because all he does is special teams. I mean, I think they have to. If you looked at the way that those punt gunners played today without him on the field, it was catastrophic. I don't think they have anybody nearly as good on the team. And I think if you're the best at something by that margin, you got to be on the team. That's an asset. But that's how I would play it, not necessarily a prediction. But yeah, I think he's going to have to, Booz is going to be a guy who takes the year off, and that's okay. Unless, a lot of guys get hurt, but I'm with you in that I'm not ready to call it quits. It's one thing to say, I can't use you right now. It's another thing to say, I can't use you right now, and I don't think there's a future for you.
So if you're slicing up the cornerback pie in week 1, you're giving all the snaps to Byron Murphy, all the snaps to Caleb Evans. Slot
Blackman comes in as a nickel.
So and let's say that 35% of the slot duties go to Murphy.
Right.
So you've got Blackman coming in for 40% and Metellus maybe for the other 25
for whenever they're in big nickel, right?
Mm-hmm.
That's the way they've played it in camp. So that seemed I think the actual percentages will probably vary a lot game to game, depending on what kind of tight ends they're scared of. And then I think when you go to dime, you just have both of those guys. So you have your 3 corners and your 3 safeties. And if they want a bigger package in dime, they can take Blackman off and put Scene in. I think that's going to be something that they might do in strange situations if they come up against like super spread teams or something like that. But that'll be a little bit more niche.
Yeah, I agree with that. I'm excited to see how they're all deployed, though, especially the safeties.
Yes. And we saw some of the Brian Flores blitz stuff. They lined up in their Bengal package, which is what they were annihilating. If you saw those blitzes, free rushers all over the place, that's what we were seeing all of camp, and what Kirk Cousins was getting so frustrated at because they couldn't practice because everything was cover 0, blitzing 8, maybe some sim pressure. And we saw the good and the bad of it. We saw Jay Ward get that big sack fumble, and then we saw that a play where they didn't get home and Jalen Williams gets beat for a touchdown. That's going to be the world we live in. That's where we're at now. And the next time we get to see it is week 1, after which Sam and I will, of course, be doing this again. We'll be here on the postcast. I see there are like over 100 of you watching right now. I am so grateful. Thank you all so much. If you do miss it live, you can, of course, catch it on the Locked On Vikings audio feed and on Locked On Minnesota Sports on YouTube, of course, which is where we're streaming live. You can always watch the video on demand there. And you can find me and Sam on the Minnesota Football Party. Sam is on that every single day. I'm on it with him Mondays and Thursdays. For Sam Ekstrom, I am Luke Braun. Hope you all enjoyed the preseason. It counts now. See you next time.